Hello and welcome to KLAS Solutions Dental Education Podcast, the podcast series where we share knowledge and experience to provide value to you and to your practice. I'm your host, Phil Cole, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about personality profiles and how important they are for your team and leadership, for hiring, and much more. So I'm joined today by Ryan Hill of KLAS Solutions. He's a certified leadership coach for us at KLAS Solutions, and he's going to be sharing his thoughts and his experience with that. So, Ryan, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Phil. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Well, I'm glad, and I'm glad that we're discussing this topic because I will say that I would say after COVID, uh, probably team and leadership is one of those things that is talked about the most. I know there's been several surveys out there in not just the dental, but healthcare in general that are stating that their number one or top three concerns is one, communication, and two, leadership. And so with that being said, it's definitely something that has changed because before COVID, I think there was more or less everything flowed. And with that big hiccup, with people not coming back to work, with people changing and moving to different positions and stuff like that because of
Yeah.
what COVID presented to us, it's now become more of a reality, I think, to a lot
Yeah.
of the owners in the business.
I think if there's one thing that COVID showed us, it was the great need for good leadership in our organizations, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess then to get started, then I mean, we kind of just touched on it a little bit, but for your purposes or from your purposes, what is the value of a personality profile for a doctor, for his team, and how he would use it, as that business owner?
Yeah. It's a personality profile has many advantages for any leader, especially a doctor with a team. But really, there's three that we could point out. The first one is so important for leaders to understand themselves, to be self-aware, to understand your tendencies and your personality profiles. Um, in and with that, it's important also that you understand what drives you, which is critically important. What are the things that move you forward and the way you're motivated. But maybe even more important than that is what drives other people, and how we can support them to become the best version of themselves as well. And then finally, if we're going to be effective leaders, we cannot do that. We cannot do that well unless we're effective communicators first. So when we think about the good reasons to do this, understanding yourself, understanding what drives you and others, and then being able to effectively communicate with the people that are on our team to build those strong working relationships with folks that are around us. And it really, honestly, Phil, it can go beyond just our work lives as well. Being more effective in all of our relationships really boils down to those three things as well, and especially that third one, being able to effectively communicate and build and develop our communication skills is critical in every area of our lives.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, the communication thing we already talked about a little bit, but with those surveys that were out, or have been out now since 2021, 2022 had it again. Top
Yeah.
five reasons, the top five things that disappoint or aggravate you on your for your owner and stuff like that. I
Hmm.
mean, everybody, there's so many times that people are like, well, it's just all about the pay, and pay was like in like fifth on
Yeah.
that list. Everything else was leadership and communication and
Yeah.
attaboys, right? So it's
Yeah.
just like we don't know what he or she wants from us,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
heard I heard a leader tell me once that it's our job to make a $25 an hour job feel like a $30 an hour job because we're creating good culture and we have good communication, we're developing the people around us. People stay for culture. And when we think about these personality assessments, that fits right in line with building that great culture and the great teamwork that people so desperately are looking for in the marketplace.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. So, with personality profiles, there's a ton of them out there.
Yeah,
And I
without a
know that
doubt.
we use DISC as one of them. There's other ones out there that are a little bit more specific for certain needs, I think, as
Mhm.
well. So but you have your color one, you have your, I forget what your rainbow one, and all these other things.
Well, there's a
Uh,
ton of them.
there's a ton of them. So everybody's trying to, but all basically point back to the same, thought process, or the same analogy, or analysis, I should say, of it. So I guess my question is, just so that people can understand, with working with KLAS Solutions, why do we use DISC?
Yeah. Couple reasons. And these are just a couple that are coming to me now, but it's backed by a bunch of research. Almost 100 years. 1920s was the first time people started working with the disc concepts. And so if you think about that, there's a lot of reliability there. The assessment has been around for a long, long time. It's been refined over the years, and research continues to be done. But when you have that many years of research behind it, we know that the assessment is reliable. It's stood the test of time.
Yeah.
But probably more important than that is that it's easy to understand and it's easy to train, right? It gives us tangible results. It gives us the opportunity to kind of see on a map where people are, and then we can show them on a map how those relationships on that disc map. But it can be used for hiring new employees and training current employees, especially. So if you think about hiring a new employee, if you're administer an assessment and you can get those results back, and you already have the results from your team, you can see where and how that individual is going to fit in with your current team that you have, which is valuable, super valuable information for somebody before they even get started. It wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to use that for yes or no to bring somebody on your team, but it is valuable to see how they are going to fit in with the personalities that are already existing on your team. And then in addition to that, the training that can take place with your current team, just in understanding how to deepen their communication skills and be more engaged with each other in the teamwork that's necessary to be a quality office.
Yeah, I think that there's two things I think of when I think of when you actually are looking at DISC. There's, unfortunately, a lot of people out there that use DISC as just a very broad, the 30,000-foot view. And I
Sure.
think that a lot of people get that as when you hear people say, "Oh, I've done DISC before. I've done the test, and that's it." They did the test and they
Mhm.
got their score, and then they were explained what a D, an I, S, or C is. But I think there's a big difference compared to what you're doing when you're applying that to so many other factors and taking a much, I mean, DISC is a very complicated, I shouldn't say, well, maybe complicated, but very in-depth program,
Yeah.
once you're trained in it and you actually are certified in it, versus you take the tests and you get a paragraph that says that you're a D, and it says that you're aggressive, right?
Yeah.
And you're like,
Right.
oh, I already knew that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing, but I think the other thing too that's really important when it comes to the disc is, when you're going, like you said, when you're going to hire someone, and you're looking for that front desk person that is got to be, let's taking the just the reception calls, I should say,
Yeah.
and you're putting someone, or somebody that's going to do the insurance verification for you, or talk to the patient about insurance, and they're in the disc category of not afraid to ask for money, afraid to, but so that instantly tells you that that person's not you wouldn't be putting that person in the right seat,
Yeah.
for that position. And I don't think that that's the problem, or tell me that I guess that's where I think that that's where it gets missed, and that's where it's not being utilized properly.
Yeah. And I would add to that by saying, every single um personality profile in the disc, no one is better than another, but understanding what the challenges are and what the stretches are inside of each one of those personality profiles is critically important, not just for the leader of the organization, but also for the individual that's required to accomplish those tasks. So, for example, if I have a C personality and my one of the requirements of my job is to be bubbly and outgoing, that doesn't mean I can't do it. It just means that I'm going to have to stretch inside of that inside of that person, my own personality, to become and practice the skills of communicating maybe outside of what my priorities are or what my preferences are when it comes to my own personality. So yeah, I mean, that's where the growth can come in, right? Where we understand who we are. So again, understanding who we are, what motivates us, but then also using that to learn how to communicate better inside the responsibilities that we have in our jobs. So yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, disc, of course, the four personalities. I mean, like you said, this has been going on for 100 years.
Yeah.
A ton of research on this. You can read till you're blue in the face. But for someone that has never done a disc test,
Mhm.
and it's amazing how many people out there that I still run across that have not ever had a
Yeah.
personality profile, period.
Right.
But those who haven't done a DISC test, there's the D, there's an I, there's an S, and a C, and those are the four personality traits, I guess, if you want to call it that, or I'll let
Yeah.
you say that. But what do each one of those stand for? What do they
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So the D style, the D stands for dominant. And again, these are just the priorities that I'm going to share with you, and they're very high level. But the D style or the dominant personality, their priorities are, getting immediate results. They love to take action, and they're not afraid to challenge both themselves and the people around them. Right? So that they tend to be your hard drivers, and the folks that like to get everything done yesterday. That's the dominant or the D style. So I style is the I stands for influence, and in these folks you'll see a lot of enthusiasm. Again, like to take action, but uh, it's in more of an encouraging and collaborative nature than in the hard driving as a D would. So they're very people oriented and love the collaboration and the teamwork aspect of working on a team. The S style, S stands for steady. So these tend to be folks that are very supportive, love harmony, love to maintain the stability, and they also are on the people side of things, and so they really enjoy the collaboration and the working together, especially when it takes on the form of um, um, close, harmonious teamwork. And then finally, the C style, which is C stands for conscientious. These folks are really focused on accuracy, love again the stability. They're questioning, tend to be a little bit more skeptical, and can be on the challenging side as well. But they're more reserved than what like a D style would be, or an S style. Even though they share some of those tendencies, they tend to be the ones that are okay with just kind of the reserved side of life.
So, in dealing with that, it having when you take a test, just so as someone
Mhm.
is aware, when you take a test, you're not going to be labeled one one only one, I should say,
Yeah,
or I mean, it's not one or the other. It is there can be a mix. Why? So explain that a little bit. There's always like a dominant and a secondary.
yeah, that's a great. First of all of us are a mixture of all of the styles. That's really critical to understand. We all have a little bit of all of them in us, but each one of us has things that we have, what we call priorities, or tendencies toward a particular style that is our preference, right? And so when you take the assessment, what the assessment will do is ask questions and lead you to answer those questions, or the line of questioning will draw you toward the answers that are within your preference, right? Often people are either one or two particular styles, and they could have parts of even three different styles. So, for example, I have a C personality, so really focused on things like accuracy and maintaining stability. However, I also have tendencies within the D style because I'm okay with being challenging. But I also have tendencies in the S style because I really enjoy harmony on teams. And so I've got that strong mixture of all of those three. However, if if it comes right down to what my priorities are and what my preferences are, it's going to be to focus on stability, and especially accuracy is important to me. But yeah, all of us are a mixture of all of those. And again, we're not trying to pigeonhole people. It's not a system to pigeonhole. It's an assessment to put us on a map to understand who are we, what are our preferences, what are our priorities, and then how do we what's the lens through which we see life. But then how do we then communicate, and this is the more important piece, is to know who's around me,
Right.
and how can I develop my own personality, my own skills to be able to communicate effectively with the folks so that my interactions can be as positive as possible.
Well, and as you know me very well, so I'm a D, I'm heavy D, and so when I first started though in the dental career and stuff like that, that would be what I would say was my downfall. I would talk one way, I would cut people off while they're talking because it was just like, nope, you're not getting what I'm saying. I'm what I'm,
Let me say it
and stuff
louder.
like that. And yeah, and I still do. No, but I think the thing is though is what disc taking it several times, and knowing that it changes too throughout your career and in your life, at least it has for me. um, it's definitely one of those things where I would say something before and think nothing of it, and then react or then think about it after the conversation was over, and probably
Yeah,
sit there and go, and I would say something like, yeah, it probably was a little harsh on that,
yeah,
or oh man, I wasn't expecting to make him cry type thing. Bad
right.
example, but I think that the importance of that for anybody that's a office manager, for somebody that's the team leader in the hygiene department or the doctor themselves, is that, for me it was told by someone, you need to, when you're ready to talk to that person, you need to take 5 seconds and think who you're talking to.
Yeah,
And it does, I forget sometimes, but it does make a big difference, because it's like, you know what, if I was to talk to you versus talk to my brother or my sister or my wife, I'm gonna, if I talk the same way every time, I'm gonna get a different result from every single person, because they're gonna look at it, or they're gonna take me in a whole different light, but yet I'm saying the same thing, but I'm saying it the same way every time
yeah.
instead of thinking about it. So
So yeah, I mean that's it right there. It's thinking about who am I talking to? What how can I adapt my communication in order to be more effective in this conversation? And let's face it, if we want to be leaders and we want to be more effective leaders, it's up to us to understand the adaptations necessary in those conversations. That's just part of the burden of being a leader. And if we want to be more effective, those are the areas where we can really grow and learn how to understand people better, and how to and in that understanding being able to communicate better with them, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And I remember one of my mentors, it sticks to me all the time, is he always told me that, hey, listen, it's your job to understand how to explain it to them. It's not their job to try to understand what you were saying or thinking. And I think that's unfortunately a lot of times with dentists, busy during the day, whatever, someone comes to
Yeah.
them and that, like I said, they don't take that deep breath to realize who they're talking to. And so now someone just walked out of the office going, he didn't even listen to me, he didn't even hear me, or whatever scenario it is, but something very similar to that, because that communication was not, you know, what didn't understand how to communicate with that person. I
Yeah.
think the other thing is too that's important is when it comes to the patient too,
Mm,
because when we're trying to sell dentistry, and so if you're trying to sell a two implants to a patient, I think it's important for you, and I always tell doctors, write down what you think their personality is, so that
yep.
when it's in your practice management, it's on your screen in your operatory. If I needed to get two implants, the way a doctor would explain the implants to me versus to you, since you said you're a C versus
Hmm.
me being a D, are two totally different things. Because if I am going to state this correctly, a C, you are going to want to know a lot of information, and you
Yep.
are going to want to know timelines, details, stuff like that.
And
And
then
I'm
I'm going to
totally
go
different.
verify it.
Yeah.
That's right. Whereas you probably would be like, you got time? You got time now? I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's get it done.
Yep.
And so, yeah, definitely understanding the difference in the communication necessary, again, to be effective in that interaction. One
So
100%.
so for the dentists out there that are listening,
Hmm.
let me give you an example. I hear this quote from many dentists in my career. Um, I will always hear dentists sit there and say, "I don't need to worry about any of that crap. I've been doing this for 30 years. My patients, they trust me."
Mm,
And yet, when you see the numbers of case presented versus case acceptance, it's sometimes usually the guys that say that, it's miles apart,
mm,
and which then
yeah.
tells me, guess what? You might think they trust you, but the numbers say no, they don't.
Yeah.
Or you're not talking to them properly, because some of these people are asking for maybe more information, or in my situation, you rattled on for an hour and you bored me so much that I'll think about it and I'm out of here right now, because you've
Yeah.
now taken up too much of my time. So I think that's huge when it comes to the patient side of things as well.
Yeah, you mentioned something, just a word earlier, and that is trust. And I would not discount to say that maybe your patients don't trust you, but trust is not something to be taken lightly. And trust can also continually be strengthened. And one of the ways that we strengthen trust is we meet people where they're at, right? And we communicate with them and adapt our communication to their style or their language of understanding. So yeah, that may be true that your patients do trust you, but like you said, in order to maybe close that gap in between what we present and what's accepted, maybe there's little tweaks that we could make in our communication style that would allow us to be able to serve those patients even better than we already are.
Yeah, and then I guess maybe they do trust you, but doesn't mean that they also are moving forward though
Yeah,
on a big case, on a
yeah,
20,000 or $10,000 case or something like that
yeah,
either. So,
right.
big difference.
And keep
So,
in mind what hangs in the balance, right? Their health. What hangs in the balance is their health. And so any way that we can continue to develop ourselves so that we can be better at taking care of our people and taking care of our patients, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we want to stretch ourselves to be able to do that even more? For sure.
yeah, I agree 100%. So, um, I guess then, I mean, how can if I'm a doctor right now listening, you know, how do I use DISC as a leader for my, like, what would I do? What do I need to do to start getting this concept uh, implemented into my practice, and making it just a way of life per se
Yeah.
in the practice?
Yeah. So, in the trainings that we do in and around the topic of disc, these are the big questions, right? How does the rubber meet the road here? What do we do and how do we make it actually work for us? Well, we spend lots of time talking about, priorities and preferences and underlying assumptions and, again, understanding ourselves and understanding the people around us is critically important. And then, once we understand those things, then we start to use that understanding in communicating, more effectively with people. Understanding what motivates people, understanding what empowers people, understanding how people want to grow. All of those things are going to create more engagement from our team. They're going to feel more embedded into that team because of the way we're stretching ourselves to meet them where they are. But yeah, I mean, all of this is part of developing as a better manager of the people that are around us, because it all boils down to being as effective as we possibly can be with our people, and adapting our style and understanding that our adaptations in our style are going to be critical to the growth of not only ourselves but everybody else that's around us. So if we are choosing to refuse to recognize that there are differences in our personalities, and we're just going to make everybody accept our communication and our own personality, our leadership will have limitations. The minute and the day that we start to embrace the fact that I can become more effective in my communication, that's when our teams are start to turn the corner and start to get stronger, and stronger cultures are built out of that, and better teamwork is always the result. And then going back to that trust piece, right? That's when trust gets elevated on teams, and when trust is high on teams, there's an awful lot that we can accomplish
Yeah.
more than if it's not there at all, or
Well,
we have limited trust.
and when we do our assessments for these practices and stuff, those who have a strong team are
Mhm.
typically the ones that have the healthiest practices, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just there's no there, and I bet you if we talk to any other consulting or coaching company out there, they would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Strong teams always are going to be the ones that are outproducing anybody.
Yeah.
Yet we run across so many times that the doctors, I have a great practice, blah, blah, blah. And then when we do our assessment and we hand out those surveys to all the people, I don't know how many times what you think and what we actually get in results from the team is different,
Yeah.
so I would say that I guess one of the other things I would say is it's funny that the offices that we have that we've coached throughout the years, the ones that really, really strive to be better and better are already the ones that believe in this, that
Mhm.
that are all in. And it's now just, what, we need a refresher course, or we need a refresher on this, that, and that, or what, take us to the next level, because we're all in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And nobody is waking up in the morning, no leader, no teammate is waking up in the morning saying, how can I be ineffective today? Our journey is about helping people understand, to wake up every morning saying, how can I intentionally be more effective today? And in DISC and understanding personality profiles is just one piece of the leadership that it takes to wake up and say, how can I be more effective today? How can I serve and engage my team in better ways today than I did yesterday?
And I
That's
think
just a tool.
and like is I think for the audience or for those who are listening, I think it's important too to understand, like, this is just one tool that you have
Yeah, yeah,
in
so
your
many.
quiver, right? I mean, you also are with 5 behaviors,
Mhm.
and the ability to do that. So I mean, I don't want people that are listening to sit there and think that it's like this is the only thing there is to do about
Yeah.
leadership. This is just one arrow out of the quiver, right?
Yeah, but think about this: if you understand how to communicate effectively, think about all the other things that are tied to that, right? The culture that you're trying to build, a vision that you have for your practice, and sharing with the different personalities on your team, how they specifically fit into that vision. In your short term, your long term goals, all of those things, being able to, your communication really revolves around all of that stuff. And so being more effective in that way strengthens so many other areas of your practice as well.
Well, I think it's huge, even because I'll speak on my own behalf on this one. From with you being coming to class, when it used to be the vision, mission, goals, the tendency that I had, and I know you asked when you came on board, what is it, and then you asked me what are my core values, and I basically did the what, and then you explained it and everything, and I think when it comes to, just like you said, the communication, the hiring of somebody and
Mm,
bringing them on board, and it has made a world of difference since you've taught me that,
mm,
uh, on bringing someone on board, having immediately, are they fitting the core values of what I believe, what I want, what my company's
yeah,
believes and stuff, instead of me kind of going, man, I think they're going to be good, and they're the disc is okay, but that, like you said, it's just one piece of it. And
yeah,
then bringing in all those other things is just there's I think there is an unbelievable amount of leadership tools out there, and I
mm,
don't think you could ever master it.
no,
Um, you know,
it's a
uh,
journey, constant
yeah,
journey of growth.
yeah. And I don't
Mm,
think that, I think that's one of those things for me. I've always attempted and tried to grow in that, but that was to me, maybe personally, and for my business, was kind of doing what I think a lot of doctors tend to do, and that's flatline.
mm,
And when you came on board and opened that core values section to me and really got me to understand that, once again, the learning curve, I guess you can say went up, but also brought me back to really making sure that you're just not listening. I think what I was doing is falling into the problem of reading books, but not really listening to the book, right? You read it and it's like, okay, got another one
yeah.
done. But
Or picking
man,
something out and applying it and saying we're gonna work on this skill
yeah.
for this time.
Yeah, and when you implemented that made me realize, and that, like I said, that got me off that plateau. So I think those who are listening, once again, if you haven't done disc, there's a chance to get off that plateau, right? But if you've already done disc and you have it down, then there's 5 behaviors that you do, and there's other workshops that you do. There's a slew of things to take you and your team to another level.
For sure. Yep, without a doubt. And within disc, there's so much that we can do with that. And like you said, it leads into other trainings that we have as well that can really take your team from maybe being good to great, or even from great to being excellent. So yeah, lots of opportunity.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Ryan, for
Yeah,
being
thanks for
on.
having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoy our show, please rate, review us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Phil Cole, your host, and once again, thank you, Ryan, for talking to us about personality profiling. Thanks everyone for listening, and have a great day.